Welcome everybody to the Bill's Birthday Bash and an annual Birthday Bash celebration at Counterpoint. It's my pleasure to welcome back Graeme from Counterpoint and Taylor, who's working in the background helping us. Justin's not joining us tonight because he is on maternity leave. They had their baby girl a couple weeks ago. So Graeme, I'm going to trip over this, aren't I?
Hey everyone. Hello, thanks for coming today, guys. Happy birthday, Bill.
Thank you.
The big 4-0.
Yeah. Unlike Troy, he's really being generous to me. Troy would have made me 70 today.
Must be 65 then.
64.
Oof.
This is 64.
All right.
Next year is 65.
That's how age is great. Sorry, I don't know. It was that much.
You're lucky you're that close to the door. You like me. So talk to me about resilience.
Yeah, so resilience is an interesting yet pretty simple beer. One of those beers we brewed a long time ago, put away in a barrel thinking that it would do well in the barrel, and checking it every so often. And it was our last barrel tasting that we did with the team. Actually, the whole team was here, and we tasted, I think, like nine barrels. So we released Opus 4, as you can remember, like a few months ago, and then this was one that we wanted to release as well. So timing worked out. We could release it for our 3rd anniversary. And just kind of one of those things, I don't know, the name kind of fit with the style of beer, the fact that it, toughed out 17 months in a barrel, and a couple doses of Brettanomyces, and here we are. It's we're just kind of indicative of, I don't know, feel like us as a business, as a brewery, and our customers and the people that stand with us, that we've made it this far. So to resilience.
To resilience, congratulations.
Thanks.
On 3 years.
Thank you. So it's a interesting, depending on how much sediment you get, it's fairly clear, low carbonated saison with Brett B and D, and sits at 7%. So somewhere in between, a nice light, I guess, crushable beer, still has substance and good body, and a lot of good but mild, barnyard funk, little slight, maybe slight smoke to it, and stone fruit, classic, like overripe apricot pit, stuff like that. So yeah, really enjoyable, and I find it easy to drink. It's one of my favorites. Well, Brett Saison is one of my favorite styles. Yeah. And oak, and yeah, definitely oak. Every time I smell it, I forget how it transitions in through the taste.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 3 years.
3 years. Yeah.
You could go back. Would you give yourself advice 3 years ago?
Don't open a brewery before a pandemic. Easy. Man, I don't know. I think just to expect something serious and very difficult to happen in the first, a few years, I think, and hopefully it can't happen twice in our brewery's lifetime, but our lifetime. Yeah, that's not wood. Yeah. I think I would say just to prepare for something serious as this, it wouldn't have dreamt of it happening. So
That's true.
Yeah.
You have been through a lot in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
Transition from a partnership to solo.
Mm-hmm.
2 years of the pandemic.
Mhm.
City letting you have a patio out there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's something else, right? So work on that this year. Hopefully make something a little prettier. Nicer to enjoy outside. It'll be nice to yeah, look for some type of setting where people can enjoy it and not necessarily have to stare at Victoria Street, but we'll see. Keep it simple, but dress it up a bit, I think.
I just have pictures of the background like in Bugs Bunny cartoons going around.
Right, yeah.
People in the street.
Yeah.
So what's coming up this year?
No plans.
No plans.
No plans at all. Just well, I lie. We've got between lockdowns and big waves, you know, we've got a new used brewing system to set up. So that's front of mind when Justin gets back from his parental leave. Then we'll be looking at setting up that system. So increase capacity a little bit, make his and my life easier when it comes to production and planning and that sort of thing, and make a bit more beer. So that's really part of it. Focus for the next few months anyways. Yeah.
What's the next barrel like?
To be determined. Yeah, to be determined, leaning towards hopeful that we've got a maple syrup, a bourbon turned maple syrup barrel turned imperial stout barrel. So hoping that that'll be ready for like maple syrup season, but that's around the corner like now. So we'll have to see if it's ready. If not, then we'll just keep tasting and see what's coming up next. Yeah. There was another candidate, but I cannot recall which barrel it was. So just keep emptying and filling and see what happens.
Well, the space has changed since I was here brewing the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Because you now have a lot more barrels.
Yeah.
More storage.
Yeah.
So what's your usual what's your usual process for checking the barrels? How often?
Checking barrels, we would do about ideally every month, but you know, there's not find that, you know, you test too often and you can't tell if anything's changed, or, you know, we make a lot of notes and try and remember what we've tasted, but you know, when you're tasting that many barrels in one sitting, it can be difficult. So, you know, every couple months we sit down, we try and get our whole team in as well so that they can experience that as well. Like, it's so interesting tasting, I guess it could be considered like the raw product before it's, you know, carbonated, chilled, ready to drink. It's nice to taste it and see it develop. So we sit down, we'll compare notes from the last tasting, you know, to what we're tasting on that day, and you know, decide if it's something that is ready to go on its own, or consider blending with another barrel, and then we'll have to sit down again with some different proportions and look at blending that. So yeah, it's quite a process, and it really comes down to, like, you know, record keeping and notes, because you think you can remember what, you know, you're I don't know, the last time you had heady topper, you know, will taste like, and you'll taste it and like, oh yeah, tastes different this time. But I mean, your memory is not as good as we think it is.
Definitely. This is why you keep copious notes.
Especially at 40.
Remember, I'm between you and the door. And you'll trip over Taylor getting out of the way.
Okay.
But I do like the fact that you are poking fun. Thank you.
I mean, I'm pretty much 40, and my memory is probably worse than yours. So.
No, I don't think so. I have notes on my mirror in the morning. Your name still.
Perfect.
What's been the most fun barrel you've made?
I think I enjoyed our 20 Hertz series. which really stemmed from the name was obviously the meaning behind it is the lowest frequency that the human ear can recognize. So a big, bold, dark beer just seemed to resonate with that name. So yeah, and we did 2 very fresh bourbon barrels with the same recipe. Oh, the next beer. Yeah. Yeah, just very bold, big stouts, going into 2 fresh bourbon barrels, and came out, as great as we could have hoped for our first barrel aged beers. And it was nice to have just that clean yet very boozy, bourbony. It's kind of like my dream beer, so I was very pleased with it. And then from then, on our second and third second fills on each barrel, we played around with it a bit. We did one with coffee vanilla, and then we did another that was the granola stout with oats, and vanilla, cinnamon, coconut, I think. Yeah, so just full of good granola goodness. So yeah. So the first ones, and I think probably my favorite. So we've got more stouts and boozy barrels. So coming up, that's pretty much, I don't know, half, no, 3/4 of the new shipment. Stouts and rum, or sorry, rye and bourbon barrels. So
Standard.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Now, I know you haven't been open long enough to gone to, but how many times would you reuse a barrel?
We are up to 3 uses. Actually, the 4th use on those original bourbon barrels. So, we get 2 fresh, very fresh, uses out of the spirit barrels. And then you kind of lose, while you still hang on to some hints of it. They serve their purpose very well, I think, for 2 runs, and then we can transition them into sort of other uses, whether it's we infect them with some souring bacteria and Brett, or we keep them clean and just kind of age them for some milder oaky residue. So yeah.
Well, I know a couple of other guys who do barrel aging talk about becoming neutral barrels, basically.
Yeah.
You're just putting a beer in to age it.
Yeah.
You're not adding any flavor from the barrel. Barrel's just basically a neutral. It's just a carrying vessel.
Yeah, for sure. Oh yeah, Taylor, some people have already had it. They don't have to. You can just ask if they want it, then yeah. Oh, I don't know. Ask Bill. It's his birthday.
Let's ask a question. Of course. Amazing. You're saying it was supposed to be put in the chat.
Oh, it's right here. Bill, the audio of your end of the conversation isn't coming through well. Granola stout has raisins too. Oh my gosh, we're missing a lot here.
You're saying that you've got 4 uses of the barrels. Do you typically put the same type of beer in the same barrel? Like, so if you're doing, I don't know how beer problem is talking about. If you're doing a pale ale in one and a stout in another, you have a mark off the barrel, make sure to do the same thing in that barrel next time, or does it matter? Or
I would say it matters, definitely. So part of like note keeping, like every barrel is labeled. That's for our own purpose, but also CRA likes to see that kind of stuff too. So, but yeah, it definitely matters. And I mean, you could pull like a pale ale out, and depending on what the origin of the barrel is, the type of wood and the yeast that was in there with the pale ale, we'll give it a rinse sometimes, or sometimes we won't, just depending on what the use is. But you're never going to can't actually truly clean the barrel, so you'll know that it'll affect it in some way or another. So yeah, so actually I can answer that further. Like for the first 2 uses of our first bourbon barrels, they were both imperial stouts, and then we've moved on to like a dark saison and a brown ale, or brown ale then saison. Do we want to go through these questions here? Can I have one too?
Absolutely.
Bill, can you show us the crowd? It's all blurry. Okay. Will there still be a patio this summer? Oh. Good question. Good question. Yeah. So the plan is to set up a patio this summer. Right now, the city has allotted sort of like the COVID patio takes us from January to March. So they did a very short window, and my guess is their prediction that, you know, COVID is easing up. So, and with restrictions lifted and the capacity being maxed out inside, means that they don't necessarily have to keep businesses going by allowing us extra space outside at, you know, and they're very lenient and generous with that, which is great. And it served a purpose for sure. So I think we'll have to go through the full application process. And I'm not sure if I can get away with, you know, kegs as the border or boundaries, or if I have to set up something a little more permanent, and then, you know, have to check in with the landlord as well. And maybe the AGCO has given us the green light for the year, so that's great, but I have to check all the boxes. Granola stout had raisins too. Yes, thank you, Galen. That was the missing ingredient. And then somebody says, Bill, the audio on your end of the conversation isn't coming through well.
We just move it closer.
Yeah.
You want to talk to me about this one?
Well, Bill, how about you talk to us about this one?
This one was a complete disaster. Because I got the first whirlpool okay when I was stirring in the malt. It didn't disturb the bottom, but the second one, unfortunately, I made Justin work really, really hard on getting it removed from it because I got the screen on the bottom lifted off.
Yeah.
But other than that, I haven't tried this yet, but everyone tells me it turned out really well. I had to talk to Graeme originally about maybe doing a Scottish ale.
Mhm.
And then Justin and I traded a few emails back and forth, and we sort of decided to try a wee heavy style, which means higher than 5%, 6%.
Yeah. Let's switch that off.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers. Happy birthday.
Yeah. Brothers from 40, 70, 64.
Yeah, can you
Eric,
switch?
you gave me that inexpensive
The
beer.
compressor
Thank
off.
you.
It's just the top right.
It's just like a chase in between the tasters. It's just forgotten.
Just a disaster. The disaster
I
beer.
thought you were going to invite me for another, boat race, which I will never do.
Yeah. I mean,
You didn't see me 4 hours after it was done.
Yeah.
You did my wife like 4 hours in bed. I like this. It turned out well.
great. Yeah. Very pleased with it as well. It's it's good. Malty is really what you're aiming for, right? That's the style.
Classic Scottish we have.
Yeah.
So when you talk to Justin, thank him for me.
I will have to drop one
I will
off.
drop it in email.
He hasn't had the beer yet. He hasn't had a few of these beers yet. Yeah, so it's really just, yeah, I mean, it's in general just a fairly basic beer, but just designed to have, good medium body with pretty much all flavor stemming from the malt, the grain bill. So a variety of grain in there that gives it its character, which is nice.
So there's been a lot of talk with everybody about supply chain interruptions over the last couple of years. How's it been for craft food industry? We know there was a shortage of cans for a while, but that's kind of gone to the wayside.
Yeah, it seems to have, and not a huge issue for us generally because we don't, we can when we're really busy and we can outsource that, which is nice. But otherwise, our bottles have been delayed a couple times, but we've gotten them in reasonable time still. Packaging was a big one, so cardboard to get 6-pack carriers. you know, it was like 2 months, 2 months to get cardboard. It's cut and glued. So that was a fun challenge at times, but you know, between other breweries and stuff, like we've been working together with them. If other breweries have some, then we'll buy some from them and vice versa. So we've traded back and forth. The main thing is so the expense of everything has gone up, the cost of everything. So especially cardboard bottles have gone up a bit, you know, caps and everything like that. And then you deal with shipping costs have obviously, especially as of late with gas going up and shortage of trucks and road and that kind of thing. So shipping's gone up quite a bit. So it's more so, I would say, the cost for us than the actual material or supply chain.
So how's the malt?
Malt has been steady for us. We haven't had any issues. We're also glad to be dealing, you know, with a lot more Ontario products, which especially malt and yeast specifically. And then we've dove into a little more Ontario hops as well. So yeah, dealing with that I think that helps as well. It helps with cost, helps with timeline, helps with just general keeping things steadier here. So, and we'll stock up when we have an order. We'll try and put in a good size order so we know that we won't have to scramble later on.
Who's your favorite malt supplier?
We've only dealt with Barnell,
Okay.
and I'm extremely happy with them. So, yeah, they're, you know, only dealt with Devin there, and yeah, they've been really good and really transparent as to their timeline. So, you know, a few weeks before, I think we need malt, chat with them and put in an order, and they can pretty much tell us when everything will be ready. They have some that, you know, their base malt in stock, and then they've got some of the other, I guess, not quite specialty, but some stuff like their wheat and Vienna and stuff that's not as produced as regularly. So they can tell us what's in their schedule and when we'll get it, which is great. So we just have to make sure that we're not in a rush for it. Sure. Yes, Mike.
For hops, how far ahead do you have to book that you can't say, hey, can I have 30 pounds of cascade?
Yeah.
Are you booking next year's crop already, or how far ahead?
No, we've been running. We did do a contract, a couple types of hops in our second year, but generally we're just doing what they call spot hops or spot purchases, and we have not had any issues. I would say that, you know, the downside to that is probably is pricing. But again, you know, there are sales or that we'll stock up on, for instance, and knowing what we're producing for the next few months, we'll be able to do that. And then sort of like also, you know, kind of bulk up an order so that, you know, we pay once for shipping versus multiple times. Within Ontario, farms are growing. There was a point in time last year, the year before, where we would talk to new farmers and saying, hey, like, you know, we have a very limited supply. You have to order by this time to get in. But more and more growth every year has allowed them to be a little more flexible as well. So yeah, we've dealt with a couple farms and they locally, and they've even delivered like next day kind of thing, which is really nice and convenient and great, right? But it's one of those things too, like a lot of these producers have staff with, say, multiple jobs. If it's not in season or harvest season, then and they, you know, they work in Kitchener or they work on the other side of the 401 or whatever, and they're driving by so we can deliver, so which is really handy. So, but yeah, so.
For the bigger hops, like the Galaxies, the ones that come from Australia and New Zealand.
Yeah.
Are you finding you have to get those like were bigger hops, or are those kind of the same as more money?
Yeah, I mean, they're expensive anyways, right? So you kind of accept that. And then, you know, our pricing system will dictate that as well. Like the pricier our beer, it's just based on the price of our, the cost of our ingredients. So it's reflected that way. So you'll see, like, some people will say, well, why is this IPA more expensive than that IPA? And that's simply it, right? It's the hops that we used, how much we've used. We haven't had too much trouble. Now, mind you, we're also very accepting of, okay, we can't get Galaxy. Like I'm not going to worry too much unless I really want to reproduce a beer that we've done before, or include that in our next recipe. Then we'll go on a big hunt, which we have done. But overall, I mean, quite happy with the varieties. And we're also big on trying like new varieties that we haven't tried before. Like if you had Next Thank You, it was 100% Ariana hops, which is a German hop, which surprised us because it was a big, juicy IPA, great IPA hop. So we've purchased more of that. And again, it's not a huge popular hop, and it's not as big as some of the big like Galaxy or let's say Nelson or anything like, that is not as popular, maybe not as big in flavor, but it's a great hop and has great flavor. So it's fun to use. Yeah.
Thank you, Mike. You took my questions away, so I was going to talk to him about the hop supply chain.
It's fresh hearing it from somebody else.
Yes. Are there more hop growers in Ontario, or just the
There
farms
are
that
quite a few. There's a big, I believe can't remember the exact term, but the Hop Growers Association. And there are dozens of farms, and spread out across from, as we know, like, kind of Tavistock way up to like towards Quebec. So, and I would love to get into more tasting with let's say the same breed of hops, but from different terroir and